So often there's one fear really that people kind of have that I think that maybe you guys can agree with me either by experience or even just by hearing it multiple times, that we've heard the fear of speaking in public. Obviously that's what I'm doing today, and it's something that we're all challenged with, that we all have that difficulty. Or there's a great deal of people that say that's one of my biggest fears. Like for me to stand in front of the spotlight, to be in front of people, and to actually sit and be in front of an audience and to have them actually focus their attention on me, that's something that they would just totally dread, that they would really not want to be in that position. Like, you could have them in any other position, but that's one that they would actually completely just fear and really be in doubt of. And it's something that, for me, it creates a little bit of anxiety. I started to get a little bit nervous whenever I realized that I'm going to be up in front of people, or even just a larger group, maybe not standing up in front of them. And I tend to sweat, I get a little bit itchy, all that kind of stuff. And you're saying, well, lovely, there's this guy standing in front of me and he's just going to sweat. That's just awesome. But for me, that it is something that is a little bit of a challenge, but I think that, all of our fears range, that we have different doubts. And as I was really looking into it, I kind of came across several different phobias. And so these ones were kind of interesting. I apologize if I don't pronounce them correctly, just with the total amount of them. Some of them are a little bit of a mouthful. But first of all, there's phobophobia, which is actually just the fear of fear itself, that you're actually just afraid of fear. Odontophobia, which is the fear of teeth. And I don't know, for me, that just puts so many different mental images in my head of just teeth. I mean, the dentist's office, or the fact of like an alligator, some wild monster, something like that. There's thalassophobia, which is the fear of being seated. So I don't know, I guess that one would just work out when you're at a restaurant and you're just like, you have the fear of somebody coming and asking you to sit down. There's porphyrobia, which is the fear of the color purple. And then my personal favorite, cactophobia, which is the fear of hairy people. Now, obviously, some of these, these are real fears, these are real phobias that people actually, say that this is something that really triggers them emotionally and mentally. But I think fear goes a lot deeper than that. That oftentimes that we do have fear that we encounter in our lives, that just the common human experience is fear, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, that we fear that we're going to mess up, or that we're really going to fail our loved ones, we're going to fail our friends, we're going to fail our family, in some form or another. That, there's certain times where I know I have emotions where I just really feel when everything's kind of closing in, that you're kind of just on the edge. Like if you mess this one up, that's really going to start the downward spiral, that's really going to cause that, and doubt starts to kind of set in as those things kind of come in. One of the things that Jesus said was that fear, that the cares of the world is really what chokes out the word of life. So that's something that can get in and really mess up somebody's life, as far as just their amount of faith, or really being able to hold and live out the word of truth that he has. But I think for today, I titled this message, Fear Not. That is something that he said back 2,000 years ago, but that he still says today, that he says to us, to fear not. That wasn't the abundant life that he promised, that wasn't what he wants for us, that wasn't the original intent, that fear wasn't a part of the original plan. That was why he came, that was what he wanted, was for us to be able to live lives of faith, that is out in Scripture. So 1 John 4:18 really, I think, says it best. It says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love." Now, the love that it talks about here is God's perfect love, that's what's going to drive out the fear, and that's where we want to go to. That's the source. And I think really that looking at a Bible character, Thomas, we look at him and we really see that, he's commonly referred to or known as Doubting Thomas, that he had the doubt just like we do. And so I think that there's 4 different things that we can look at, 4 events in his life that really help us kind of shape and see the doubt and the fear that he had, but also the overcoming of faith that he had. So first of all, just in his first event, just really, there's very little that we see about Thomas within the New Testament. But one of the first things that he actually is out doing is that he's given authority, that he was chosen by Jesus, that Jesus spent time in the night of prayer, that he chose this man, as Thomas is chosen to be one of the disciples, to walk with Jesus, to live in the life of faith. And so the first scenario that we actually see is he's going out with the disciples, and we don't know how long this is approximately after he's been called, but it says that they were given authority to cast out demons, authority over to heal diseases, to be able to cleanse leprosy, and to just preach the word. And that was something that he actually lived with the other disciples, that they did go out and they did have authority in those things, that they had success, they had faith, they were called to be, Jesus uses the term sheep among wolves. And it was something that, within those scenarios, you're facing demons, you're facing the different human frailty, and it's something that I think fear would creep in, that fear would get us. But I think what was able to really help him overcome that was the authority of God's love, that it was the authority that Jesus had given him, that it was a place where he could actually be and say, this was a spot where I was, that Jesus gave him authority, and so he was able to claim that, he was able to walk it out and to live it out, and to have the authority. That was what conquered his fear. So I think for today, for us, that many of us have maybe been in a spot where, we feel challenged, but we have God's authority, and we've lived in those things. We've asked for things in prayer. We've seen those praises, seen those answers, and been able to praise. That we've been able to minister to others. That we've been able to have success in serving, to see others come to faith, and we've triumphed in those ways that they did. That we had authority that Jesus gives us as believers, but that oftentimes that fear comes in, that it creeps in and starts to disturb that. And so I think for us this morning, that if we're able to look at where we really are, that in authority, that we need to look at the places of our lives that, maybe we have the fear, but maybe it's a spot where we've either come in and we're trying to take the authority that we have, that Jesus hasn't been able to give us in those situations, that he said, hey, let me handle that, and we're trying to grasp his authority and trying to take the situation and make control of it ourselves, or that we're actually, not allowing him to come in, and we're not actually taking authority, that he's promised us that he's given us authority in certain areas, but that we're not living it out because we doubt, that we don't trust him. The second event that I really see is just where the unity of love was able to just conquer this fear. This is just an awesome example that I see, is that when I read this a couple months ago, it just kind of blew me away, because we often hear Doubting Thomas, and this is a scenario where Jesus had just been in Bethany, and just shortly after that he's going to go back, and there's the scenario with Lazarus. And so the point of this was just at that point that he had actually just been ran out of town because they wanted to stone him. And so Jesus goes and he says, we're going to go back to Bethany where Lazarus is, and he's going to, I'm going to see him after he's died. And so the thing that it is that the disciples start to doubt, they start to fear, they start to sense, like, hey, Jesus, wait a minute. Whoa, we were just here. They just tried to stone us. They just tried to stone you. Do you really want to go back there? And they start to have that doubt. And Thomas is the one that steps up and he says, let us go and die with Jesus. Let us go so that we may die, so that we can be united, that we can actually go and follow in the footsteps that he has, and we're actually going to go with him in that. And so I think that he actually pulled the other ones in, the other disciples, and he actually united with them. He was able to just take a moment and be able to just, I can almost imagine the tension of the guys just as they start realizing this, and he encourages them, that they were like, yeah, let's go, and ironically, yeah, let's go get stoned, let's go get killed. And, it's kind of I can see that mentality, but I think that in that maybe we're facing something where we need unity, that we need to be united with a friend, we need to be united with somebody, just even with an issue with Christ, that we need to actually connect with him and to see his perspective on it, and to actually let that drive out the fear that we're facing in our own lives, either with a friend that we're trying to take on too much ourselves, or trying to take on something, but just as Thomas did, that he actually said, come on guys, like this is Jesus we're walking with, that we can walk with him, and that we can have that unity and just drive out that fear. The third event really that I see in Thomas's life, just in driving out this fear, was that it was the Last Supper, and Jesus was talking to them, and he was sharing with them, and they're sitting around the table, and he's sharing that, yeah, he is going to be leaving, he is going to be going off, that he is going to be leaving them for a while, but he says, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And he says that in that he's going to leave, but he will return, that he will come back, and that he's going to take them with him. And so I think